to research women's empowerment and entrepreneurship and interviewed 19 Japanese women entrepreneurs and 14 in Denmark. In the past, I've also worked at startups like Google, and I unfortunately attended UC Berkeley, not Stanford. Both schools are absolutely amazing though. And currently I'm leading marketing efforts at a small B2B startup in Silicon Valley. So here, this is really why MEXT in Japan. I think, for me, it's obviously a phenomenal program, as you heard Steve mentioning earlier in the presentation, that, they cover absolutely everything, which is phenomenal. But it's also for personal reasons, I'm half Japanese. I really had this dream to study and work abroad at some point in my life, and I wasn't sure exactly how I would do it. But MEXT really was the perfect channel for me to really achieve that dream. And, I fell in love with traveling and experiencing all of these diverse cultures. Some of the young women here are actually from the Philippines and China. And as Steve mentioned earlier too, there's so many cultures and different backgrounds and people from varying socioeconomic backgrounds and countries and ethnicities coming to Japan to study at these top universities. So I actually lived in the International House at UC Berkeley, for example, and I felt like it was one of the best semesters of my life because I was always having lunch with Brazilians and then dinner with people from Mexico and stuff. And it's exactly the same in Japan. It's like you have this microcosm of all these wonderful international students from all over the world. I met people from Afghanistan and Kazakhstan and Africa, and just places that you normally don't have the ability to interact with, at least in Silicon Valley, and due to COVID. So anyways, here are some general application tips for anyone who is considering applying. I think it's really important to find a relevant and timely topic and really prove that you can ace this research trip. And I'll show you some examples of what I did next. And I think in general, when you're applying for any research grant or any or master's degree program, you really have to do well on the interview portion as well. So practicing interviews with family and friends, and also conducting job interviews just to practice is also really good. And then lastly, paying very close attention to detail. Japanese are known to be very meticulous, and your photo that you submit has to be exactly 3 by 2 centimeters, for example. It can't be 0.01 centimeters off. It has to be exactly what what they want and what they specify. Okay. So here is something that I did. I essentially created a website, a very simple website for all of the research that I was working on. And so I had the background and interest, I had the area of focus, I had the SWOT analysis. Oh, sorry. Is that better? Hello? Am I still frozen?
You're good.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. So I also created this action plan. So every 2 to 3 months, what would I be doing? What did I think and what did I envision that I would be doing at that time? So I wrote a very detailed research plan. I put it all in the in the application itself, but I also created a website to showcase the things that I was thinking about and how I was formulating my research plan and exactly what I would do as a research scholar. I think that was probably a key selling point for me. To be able to receive this scholarship. So some of my highlights, there's so many, as Varun was talking about earlier, there's just so many amazing things about studying in Japan. And for me, that really came down to networking and having these incredible opportunities that I don't think I would have had studying in the US, for example, because it's a very small country. They really appreciate foreigners. And there are so many opportunities now, especially because of the aging population, and they really want to hear from you. So anyways, I worked at a very small tech company with 130 people in Tokyo, and I was the very first foreigner they ever hired. Granted, it was only an internship, it was only 1 month, but it was also the very first time they had an intern. So it was a huge learning curve on both sides, and it was a fantastic experience. I also was able to create these Silicon Valley trips because I had experience working in tech companies. And I had a lot of friends who were at Airbnb, Facebook, Twitter, all the top companies. And so I facilitated these tours with Japanese students, as well as some of there are business owners in the MBA program at Kyoto University. And they came along as well. And we had these very informal conversations with all of these people at top tech companies. And I was able to do that twice with my professor. And then I also got this random opportunity to help out with there's a Kyoto Research Park. And the guy, he's pictured on the top right corner. He's wearing a traditional Japanese outfit, but he's very well connected, and he has a lot of organizations that he's supporting, and he helped like connect me to this textile and robotics company in Kyoto, because Kyoto is really trying to blend the modern and the traditional. So they're really trying to advance their unique technology and their unique assets. And I presented on their behalf and helped them translate brochures. And it was a huge event with like 300 people. And they also had geisha. So that was the first time I ever met real geisha, which was fantastic. And we also had, as part of the university program, there's so many opportunities to travel internationally. So one, we went to Taiwan, and all of the students presented at the National Taiwan University. We had exchanges with Taiwanese students. We spoke with ambassador in a Japanese program in Taiwan, which was awesome. And then I met a woman who was also a MEXT scholar from Albania, of all places. And she and I became very close friends, and I ended up accompanying her on a trip in Albania and surrounding countries with a professor from Japan or two professors from Japan and also some students. And it was like this phenomenal learning opportunity for all of us. I also received special funding from the Kyoto University program to study in Denmark to further my research. So I spent 3 weeks there, which was phenomenal. And on my own time, I was able to travel around Southeast Asia and really experience the cultures there as well. So here's one of the women I interviewed. Since in the interest of time, it's already 5, I'm not gonna go through this, but here's just some of the women that I was able to interview and had these wonderful conversations with. She's actually just the same age as I am, a very remarkable young woman, very different from a typical Japanese archetype, female archetype. So lots of phenomenal people I was able to interact with, and even in Denmark, amazing folks. So I think for me, there's a lot of benefits. As everyone has mentioned, I think, since I was half Japanese, I am half Japanese, am half Japanese, I had the ability to, get closer to a lot of my family members who are pictured here as well, and really be able to have these amazing encounters with so many people from all over the world, like students from Cambodia right across from me, and all kinds of really interesting experiences. And obviously studied Japanese as well. I was actually in an English program for my master's degree, but I studied Japanese on the side, and thankfully was able to pass the JLPT level 2. So my final words of encouragement for anyone who wants to apply and anyone who's still left on the call, sounds like 14 people are still on, but really being able to pay meticulous attention to detail is important. Being flexible and adaptable to changing circumstances is also critical. And then writing and rewriting and polishing your proposal and anything that you submit in general. And never giving up here is really about, sometimes as a foreigner, you're the first person who's ever done X, and especially at a public institution like Kyoto University or even UC Berkeley, there's a lot of things that they just can't do because it's not in the rule book, right? It's not in the guidelines. And so you have to just figure out a way for them to say yes. And so I had to do that a couple times, and that was a really good learning opportunity of being very proactive and also just making sure that there's a way to solve a problem in a different and unique way. And finally, just enjoy the process. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to email me afterwards. I'm more than happy to answer any questions because I know we've run over time as well. So thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. We're delighted to have you. We will send everyone, all the students, the follow-up.